The neighborhood was quiet that morning, the kind of muted calm that lay over the cul-de-sac like a heavy woolen blanket. My front yard, modest but lovingly tended, basked in the early sun. The grass, cut with a precision bordering on obsessive, was a rich green. A painter's dream of verdant health. It rolled up to my front door, now a bold, unapologetic red. Against the beige monotony of the houses lining our street, it stood out like a cardinal in a winter forest. I had painted it on a whim, inspired by the pocket of rebellion that sometimes stirred within me. The door was the heart of my home, and it deserved to beat with vibrance, not cower behind the faded whisper of dull neutrality. As the brushstrokes dried, I admired my handiwork, feeling a small, satisfying thrill. Then, predictably, came the storm. Her name was Karen, though in this tale it might as well have been Destiny. She was the president of our homeowners association, a title she wore like a crown. Karen was the kind of woman who moved through the world with the certainty of an emperor, her gaze slicing through the ranks of the neighborhood, searching for mutiny. The first shot fired was subtle. A note slipped under my door, typed in cold, impersonal font, reminding me of the HOA color guidelines. Approved colors, it read, were designed to maintain harmony. Harmony, I mused, a word that seemed to mean sameness to those who feared the vibrancy of life. I folded the note, tucked it away. A memento of sorts. The red door stayed. Karen's next move was a checkmate, or so she thought. A notice of violation, this time delivered with the sharp rap of her knuckles on the door. I opened it to find her standing there, a slight woman with a steely gaze that could etch glass. Her eyes flickered briefly over the red door, as though it wounded her. I smiled, the kind of smile that knows its place in a world of order and disruption. Karen's face twitched almost imperceptibly, a momentary lapse in her fortress of resolve. Then she left, her heels clicking a staccato down the path as if marking my countdown. The calm before the tempest was always the most telling. Like a painting that whispered its story before you stepped back to see the whole. I could have changed the door. I could have peeled away the audacity of crimson to return to the languid comfort of conformity. But there was a quiet power in standing firm. We are told to pick our battles carefully, but sometimes battles pick us. The morning she called 911, I was tending to the roses, their blooms defiantly red, mocking the scene that unfolded. The patrol car idled at the curb, lights swirling silently, a visual siren. Officers stepped out, bemused at the absurdity of their dispatch. I watched Karen from the corner of my eye, her arms crossed, satisfaction radiating from her as if she had finally restored order to her corner of the universe. In that surreal tableau, the irony was almost poetic. The officers approached with weary professionalism, their questions hanging in the air like ghostly echoes. I replied, my words tranquil ripples on a pond of chaos. This was my home, my castle, and the door was an extension of its heartbeat. Not an act of aggression, but of expression. Karen's eyes met mine across the yard, and for an instant, just an instant, I thought I saw something flicker there, a realization perhaps, or maybe just a reflection of what could never truly be tamed. And so, the curtain fell on Act 1, the stage set for a dance of wills beneath the watching eyes of silent houses. In that quiet moment, I knew the story was only beginning. The sun crept over the horizon, casting a warm glow that, for a brief moment, made the world seem peaceful. But I knew better. The red door stood defiant, a silent sentinel against the chaos that swirled around it. It was still and strong, like the calm before a storm. Karen had not wasted any time. The very next day, the first of her citations arrived. It was tucked neatly under my windshield wiper, as if she believed her authority extended to parked cars. Infraction, non-compliant door color, it read. The ink was bold and accusatory, much like its author. I could almost see Karen's pursed lips as she wrote it. the satisfaction in her eyes. The letter was merely the beginning. Almost overnight, new rules appeared as if conjured from thin air, each one more absurd than the last. Grass-length decrees, specific times for garbage disposal, even precise shades for holiday lights. I half expected a mandate on the direction of sunlight. My neighbors, once friendly and chatty, grew cautious. There was a change in the air, a subtle shift in the way they spoke to me. Conversations were clipped, and eyes would dart away when mine met theirs. Karen's whispers had taken root, spreading like a pernicious vine. Gossip, that cruel mistress, was in full swing. According to the tales, I was a rebel, an anarchist bent on destroying the fabric of suburban order with my brazen choice of paint. It was almost laughable. Almost. But the laughter was thin comfort against the onslaught. Each morning, I would find something new. A snide note about architectural harmony, a reminder of community values, little daggers intended to slice away at my resolve. But my door remained. Its bold hue was a beacon in the monochrome world Karen tried to craft. The irony was rich. Her attempts to control only emboldened me. The absurdity of it was impossible to ignore. The more she pushed, the more I found myself digging in, finding strength in the defiance. It was as though she was teaching me resilience in spite of herself. In the quiet moments, I would stand before the door, letting my fingers trace the imperfections in the wood. Those imperfections were real, solid, unlike the transient nature of Karen's fury. This door was a testament to individuality, a middle finger to conformity. The climax arrived quietly. Karen, with her clipboard and her disapproving frown, stood at my property line one morning. The sun was barely up, dew still clinging to blades of grass. She eyed the door, then me, her gaze sharp enough to cut. You'll regret this," she murmured, more to herself than to me. I met her eyes, unflinching. In that moment, I realized the battle was just as much within her as it was against me. Her struggle was not with a door, but with the idea that someone dared to live outside her lines. As she turned and walked away, I felt a strange sense of pity. For all her bluster, Karen was trapped in a world of her own making, a prison of self-imposed rules and rigid expectations. And I was free. The door would stay, red and proud. A statement, yes. But more than that, a choice. To live unbowed. To embrace the colors of life in all their vivid glory. The storm would pass, but the door, it would stand firm. The afternoon sun poured over my small suburban kingdom like honey, thick and golden. My door stood defiantly red, an ember in a sea of beige conformity. Karen, with her clipboard and self-righteous air, had become a notorious fixture in our neighborhood, scrutinizing lawns and house colors with the fervor of a crusader. Her 911 call had been an echo of her absurdity, claiming my door was an affront to our community's delicate sensibilities. I knew something had to be done, but unlike her, I preferred subtler strokes over sledgehammers. So, I documented. Every letter she sent, every violation she alleged, I photographed, filed, and stored in an ever-expanding dossier. The power of details is that they can drown the oppressor in their own minutiae. The day after the police left, bemused and slightly annoyed by her antics, I stood in front of that red door, contemplating its silent rebellion. The neighborhood was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves and distant chirp of a bird. I saw the potential for change, the kind that flows like a whisper through cracks, gradually widening them. I reached out to residents who shared the strange warmth of my subversive door, the ones who had been on the raw end of Karen's rule book. We spoke in hushed tones, at backyard barbecues or under the guise of book club gatherings. Stories of her overreach trickled like rainwater seeping into earth, forming a hidden reservoir of solidarity. Then, I began to paint. Not doors this time, but a picture with words and images. A newsletter, innocuous in appearance but sharp with irony. Tales of neighborhood happenings, each account a veiled nod to her tyranny. The Scarlet Door Saga section chronicled the adventures of a certain Crimson Door and its unwarranted infamy. It was a mirror held up to her absurdity, so subtle she might miss its reflection. In the weeks that followed, the newsletter fluttered through mailboxes, a breeze carrying whispers of dissent. I watched as the pages were read, snickered at and shared. A quiet rebellion spreading like wildfire. The community began to see Karen not as the vigilant guardian she fancied herself, but the misguided zealot she had become. One morning, as I sipped my coffee by the window, I saw Karen pause by my door. Her eyes darted across the vibrant red, the newsletter in her hand crumpling slightly. For a moment I feared retaliation, but she simply exhaled, her breath visible even in the warming spring air. It was then I realized the true power of my subtle counter. Karen had been stripped of her authority, not by force, but by the force of her own reflection. The community had found its voice, a chorus that sang of individuality and the absurdity of her reign. As she walked away, my door stood steady, a beacon of individuality in a monochrome world. The red had not dimmed, nor had my resolve. I watched her retreating figure, a shadow in the brightening morning, and felt a quiet triumph. The strange warmth of defiance glowed in my chest, as enduring as the sun that rose over my small suburban kingdom. The morning sun peeked reluctantly through the heavy curtains, casting narrow slits of light across my living room floor. Another day under Karen's watchful eye. I sipped my coffee, savoring the bitter warmth as it seeped through the cool porcelain mug, steeling myself for what lay ahead. Outside, the ominous red of my front door gleamed with a defiant sheen, a beacon of rebellion amid the sea of beige conformity. It was time. A week had passed since Karen's last theatrical performance, a cacophony of indignation that had ended with the wail of sirens and the curious eyes of the neighborhood peering over hedges. The red door had become legend overnight, a silent protest against her tyrannical reign over our small suburban kingdom. Her voice still echoed in my mind, shrill and unwavering, a testament to her unyielding dedication to banal regulation. But laws are not mere words to be wielded by the petty and power-hungry. They are the architecture of our freedom, the silent arteries of justice. I had spent the week quietly gathering my arsenal, tucked away behind the unassuming walls of my home office. The documents lay in neat stacks, each page a potential weapon waiting to be deployed. The HOA bylaws were my starting point, a lattice of legalese that Karen wielded with the precision of a surgeon. Yet, like all intricate structures, it had weak points, hidden crevices where truth and fairness lingered. I pored over every word, tracing each clause with my finger until I found the one thread that could unravel her tapestry of control. It was there, nestled between pages of mundane stipulations, a clause on architectural consistency, vague enough to be exploited, yet firm enough to build my case. With practiced care, I drafted my argument, each sentence crafted to pierce through Karen's armor of self-righteousness. The tone was methodical, calculated, a dance on the edge of irony. My case was growing, a quiet force beneath the surface of suburbia, ready to emerge from the shadows. The air in my office was thick with anticipation, each breath a measured step toward the inevitable confrontation. I imagined the look on Karen's face, the slow dawning of realization as her fortress crumbled under the weight of her own regulations. In that moment, justice would find its voice, a quiet symphony of vindication. The day passed with slow certainty, the sun casting long shadows across the world as it slipped below the horizon. Evening settled like a comforting blanket, wrapping the neighborhood in its embrace. I watched the red door from my window, its boldness undiminished in the fading light. It was a testament to patience, to quiet resolve. Tomorrow, I would present my case. A quiet knock on Karen's door, papers in hand. The calm before the storm. I imagined her bluster of indignation, my measured response. One line, sharp and unmistakable. The rules apply to everyone, Karen. In that moment, the red door would not just be a symbol, it would be a victory, a testament to endurance against the petty tyranny of conformity. I sipped my coffee, savoring the quiet power of the night, the calm anticipation of justice well deserved. The tension in our neighborhood had reached a fever pitch, a palpable hum in the crisp evening air. As I stood on my porch, the red door behind me was a bold exclamation point in a sea of neutral tones. It had become a symbol of resilience, a silent protest against conformity. Karen's discontent had turned it into a community battleground. The board had finally convened an emergency meeting. A hasty assembly of concerned homeowners converged in the small, stuffy clubhouse that usually echoed with the laughter of children during birthday parties. Tonight, it crackled with the static of unspoken grievances. Karen, clipboard in hand, had planted herself at the center like a queen presiding over her court. Her smile was thin, as sharp as the paper edges she clung to. I watched from the periphery, absorbing the undercurrents of frustration and defiance washing over the room. Her voice, usually a near-constant drone, was now a weapon. She wielded it to whip up fear, painting the door as a breach of decorum, a threat to property values. But tonight the usual murmurs of agreement were absent. The crowd shifted, a restless sea against her crumbling shore. As she spoke, my eyes drifted to the window. The outside world, painted in twilight blues and shadowed greens, was a stark contrast to the artificial warmth inside. I felt the weight of the room's anticipation, the crescendo of a symphony building to its climax. Karen's voice wavered, a slight tremor betraying her confidence, as she turned to me with a question thinly veiled as a challenge. I met her gaze, calm and unflinching. The room held its breath. I thought it was time for a change, I said, my voice steady, each word deliberate. In that moment, the tension snapped, a taut wire releasing its energy into the room. Murmurs of agreement, small but potent, rippled through the crowd. The tide had shifted. Faces once turned to Karen now looked to one another, seeking silent consensus. The board, usually Karen's staunch supporters, shifted uneasily. The meeting, a spectacle of formality, slipped from her grasp. Karen's composure cracked. Her grip on the clipboard tightened, white-knuckled. The authority she wielded was evaporating, the community's approval a ghost of its former self. My heartbeat drummed a steady rhythm, a calm counterpoint to the chaos unfolding. The red door, once a solitary stand, had woven itself into the fabric of our neighborhood. It had become a rallying cry for those tired of tyranny disguised as order. The board voted. The decision was swift, a merciful ending to months of unrest. Karen's reign, built on fear and regulations, quietly crumbled. She was sidelined, her power reduced to whispers of the past. As I walked home that night, the cool air kissed my skin. The path was lit by the soft glow of porch lights, each house a beacon of individuality, restored to its rightful place. The red door stood proudly, a monument to persistence, its color vibrant in the starlit night. Behind me, the community murmured with renewed spirit, voices carrying promises of change. And as for Karen, she remained in the shadows, a reminder of what once was, a footnote in the story of our neighborhood's quiet revolution.